everybody. So, this is a new thing that I'm starting to do. It is called a look into, and it's basically where I give a review on a novel that I've read and just talk about it. So, today's novel is Chlorine Sky by Mahogany L. Browne, and I really liked this novel. So, a little bit of background information. This novel was released in mid January of 2021, so it's relatively new as of the day I'm recording this in 2023. It is actually Browne's debut YA novel. So, Mahogany L. Browne is a renowned poet, but this is the first time that she's written a YA novel, which I think is really cool because she uses her skills as a poet into writing the novel, because this novel is a verse novel. It only took me about an hour and a half to read through, so it's a very quick read, but there is so much in this text. So, one of the main things about the novel is that it is about being a young black girl in America and all the crazy things that can come with that. So I don't know what this is like. I am a biracial First Nation white, and I'm First Nation and I'm white. So I do not know anything about what it's like growing up as an African American person, especially in America. So we are shown these themes through the main character Sky, and her name is spelled Skyy, which I think is really cool. Sky is a young teen, around 14, 15 years old. We never get a 100% confirmation on her age. And we're basically just following her through her life in certain things that are happening in her life. So, to start off with Sky, Sky is described as quiet, and there are many moments in the novel when other characters call her small. So, like, she doesn't take up a lot of space, and she doesn't really cause a disturbance. And she starts to think that that's her job, just to kind of be there and not cause any kind of disturbances or disruptances in anybody's life. The only time that she really lets herself be big, quote unquote, and angry and take up space is when she's on the basketball court. Sky loves playing basketball. That's one of her biggest things. So throughout the novel, we are shown just aspects of her everyday life, like her when she plays basketball, or when she goes to the pool in the mall, when she hangs out with her friends, and basically anything else that a teen would do. And at one point, we start to notice some things change for Sky when her best friend, whose name is Layli, that's Layli, just stops talking to her and just ghosts her. And this causes Sky to reflect on the friendship that they had. Up until that point, in memories that Sky shares with us, all exist within her friendship with Layli, most of which Layli is the center of attention. So it's obvious that what we're being told from Sky, that Layli is basically, she's like the shining star. You know, she always like takes people's attention, is the center of attention, is just that attention grabbing person. And like we mentioned before, Sky is not. Sky prefers and thinks it's her job to be in the background. So she's kind of just living in Layli's shadow. And we're actually given a quote from Sky at one point in the novel. I don't know exactly what page it's on because I have a digital copy. But literally the quote says, "With Layli, I don't have to think too hard. I'm the friend of the star, and I don't mind, not at all." She's literally acknowledging that she lives in Layli's shadow, but she's not really bothered by that fact. And a big part of that is because Sky doesn't really know her own self-worth and importance because she's had this friend who's always been the center of attention and always just demanding, while she's been told that she needs to not cause a disturbance and she needs to be small and just quiet. Um, but the more that the story goes, the more that Sky starts to reflect on the way that Laylee would treat her during their friendship and like after they stopped talking. And she starts to realize that maybe this friendship that she had with Laylee is toxic and one that she should probably let go. But there's something in her that's keeping her from letting this friendship go from how long they've been friends and how close they are. They're literally best friends. And even though Sky acknowledges that this relationship is toxic, it isn't one that she should really be putting her time into and could just harm her, she doesn't want to let Laylee go because of how much they've been through with each other. But yeah, so the more that Sky reflects, Sky meets a boy, and the boy starts to help her kind of see her own self-worth and how she can be big outside of the basketball court, and she does have importance and she is important. And just the more that she goes, the further she gets away from Laylee, the more Sky starts to realize that her voice matters and things that she says carries value, and whatever she talks about is important, that she herself is important. Another quote that I think is really good in this novel, again, I don't have the page numbers because I have the digital copy, but when Sky finally starts to realize that her voice can be used for something and like to be used to make a difference, she says, "I realize a girl's mouth is a weapon. Now I realize being a girl is heavy business." I really like this quote. It is one of my favorites in the whole novel. I highlighted it, I marked it, like, I thought it was really cool because, especially now, it is being brought to mainstream light and like brought to light about how badly people of color, specifically women of color, especially Black women, are treated in any scenario. Like, can just be schooling with their hair, because certain protective hairstyles are still seen as unprofessional to this day. And almost every day you're hearing stories about how a school would cut a young girl's hair off because it wasn't quote unquote professional. Um, or all the things that happened with the BLM movement and just those things being brought to light and how the male voices were carrying more weight than female voices, even though women's voices have as much, if not more, power than their male counterparts. Sky is finally starting to realize that her voice can literally be used as a weapon. Like, the things that she says carries strength and carries value. And that shows so much growth to what she was like in the beginning of the novel. Like, not wanting to start any trouble, just staying behind everybody, staying in the shadows. Another thing that I thought was very interesting about this novel is that Mahogany L. Browne did not give us Sky's name until the end of the novel. So we didn't get the main character's name until the very end. I thought that was very, very interesting and a very cool, like, artistic kind of spin to it, because usually the first thing you see in a novel is the main character's name. But I think that not giving Sky's name and giving her like that time to grow, and because those sayings, kind of like the sky's the limit, or like there's no limit on whatever. I don't know. But how just the sky is usually used to represent something big and something expanding. And at the beginning of the novel, Sky wasn't that. So she wasn't living up to her name, because names have meaning. Like, names, especially in like minoritized communities, have meaning. Like, I know for me, my tribal name has meaning. It connects me to something bigger. It connects me to my ancestors and to people who are like my family members that are living now, or people who I'm not related to, but we're still part of my culture. Like, it connects me to something bigger. And I can imagine that's what it's like for basically anybody's name that has meaning. Even if you're not a part of some, like, minoritized culture, names can still have meaning. It doesn't matter if it's a big meaning or just like a small meaning to your family. Names have meaning. So I think that not giving Sky's name until the end of the novel is like, I don't really have the words for it. I just think it's such an extremely interesting touch, because it gave Sky the room to grow into her name, to embrace what her name means, and not be the small thing that people made her out to be, but to be this big, expanding, powerful thing. Um, yeah, I thought that it was extremely interesting, and Mahogany L. Browne did a very, very good job through her word usage and just her narrative in portraying all these complex themes that are sometimes overlooked, because, like I said, women of color, especially Black women's voices, are ignored for like a lot of things. But when someone is able to weaponize their voice and use it for change, it can change everything. It can be like an actual weapon. So these are just a few thoughts that I have on the book, and I know that it was kind of scattered and everywhere. And if you think you're still iffy about reading this book because my review was extremely scattered and kind of all over the place, because that's just kind of how my brain works, I think that reading my absolute favorite quote from this novel can help sell this book to you, and like, you should read it. So here's the quote. It says, quote, "If you show up and show the world your real self, you don't have to wait for others to claim you. You don't have to wait for others to pick you. You pick yourself, I mean. Really choose yourself every day, and no one will be able to tell you that you aren't the real MVP." End quote. I think that quote perfectly like shows what this whole novel is about. And if you have read The Hate You Give or The Poet X and you really liked those books, which I really recommend if you haven't read those either, but if you really liked those two books, I feel like you would love Chlorine Sky. I really enjoyed reading this novel, and I'm very excited to read and listen to other works by Mahogany L. Browne. I think that she's amazing, and I truly think that this is only something that she could have done. So I give this book a 4.8 out of 5 stars. I think it's amazing, and I hope that you're able to enjoy it as much, if not more, than I did. So, thank you for listening. Bye bye.